On April 16, 2026, TikTok influencer MJ Gray announced to her hundreds of thousands of followers that she's engaged. The post followed days of Gray giddily showing off her thousands of dollars shopping sprees in Paris and some pics at gorgeous flowers she received from her still anonymous partner. Usually, these news would be received with applause, congratulations, and well wishes almost unanimously. However, the video, which was captioned with, "I know what I said," received immediate backlash and resentful complaints. Why would hundreds of thousands of people, mostly women, who literal hours before were singing her praises, be so upset about apparently happy news on MJ's life? Well, if you let them tell it, she's a hypocrite, a liar, and a destroyer of lives.
Gina George is not sweet. She's a scum-sucking road whore. She ruined my life.
Let's talk about supposedly feminist anti-marriage narratives online and their unsustainability. Through the media, countless people learn that marriage is a burden for men. Entire sitcoms hinge on audiences enjoying the premise that poor, tired men who work hard all day have to come home where their wives reign supreme and listen to problems they're mostly uninterested in, like their children's lives, where their families are obstacles to them having all the innocent fun with the boys. Phrases like the old ball and chain and whipped husband painted an image of women as parole officers for their husbands, who they wanted to keep hostage to fulfill their need for control, a clean image, and/or a certain lifestyle. An arrangement men were duped into by believing they were marrying a fun-loving hot girl, only for her to turn uptight and boring with the years. This narrative says that marriage is a trap for men, where they receive little to no benefits. But what do the numbers say? Studies consistently demonstrate that married men have higher salaries, longer lives, and richer social circles. Meanwhile, married women have less earning potential and more workload in the household, regardless of employment status, all that without factoring in children. Marriage was initially pursued by women as a necessity. Men had legal guardianship of their wives and mothers. Marriage could be a woman's only chance at switching handlers, having authority in their household, and, especially for poor women, unburdening their family from the cost of an extra mouth to feed. However, a man could woo a woman during the courting period, but turn into a completely different person once she was legally and socially chained to him. That is, of course, without accounting for women whose opinion on who or when to marry was not considered. The decision taken for them by their family based on what was convenient, practical, or seen as socially necessary if the man had assaulted her, making her a casualty instead of a victim in society's eyes. Now, with the legal freedom to choose and stop choosing a particular man at any moment, with empirical and statistical evidence of the cost of marriage, particularly with social media propagating news of physical, intimate, and psychological violence against women by their partners, the narrative has changed. There's more and more content instructing men on how to conceal undesirable aspects of themselves to women they're dating in hopes of building a committed relationship and getting the benefits out of their partners they're missing out on. Just as much content alerting women on the risks of getting romantically involved with men. Decentering-men influencers, a conundrum. A group of women who are afraid of entering relationships with men but have no guidance on how to conduct a life that's not in pursuit of obtaining and maintaining a husband is a prime market for influencers to tap into. In recent decades, women were motivated to be independent and career-oriented, yes, but only to a point. Professional women who are alone and unfulfilled became a popular trope as quickly as women started entering the job market more and getting married less. So, our mothers and grandmothers might motivate us to get a degree, but there are few who don't expect or even push the women in their lives to find their forever partner in a man. So, connecting with aspirational figures who seem to have all the answers to not get your heart, your bank account, and your body broken is like winning a lottery ticket. Decentering-men influencers are supposed to orient women towards a life that sees them as the main individual to appease, encouraging their audience to explore what the world has to offer, not based on what is trendy or attractive, but what is fulfilling to them. However, in an effort to demonstrate why it's important to decenter men from your life, many of these women end up making their whole online persona, and therefore their careers, a collection of reports on how men are dangerous, repellent creatures. The results reminds me of the phrase, being so focused on not being your mother, you end up becoming your father. In trying to give women the permission to find themselves free of male-focused expectations, they give advice that is simply an opposite response to those male desires. And while that is not always the wrong direction to go in, it still makes men the compass by which they guide their lives. As a result, a subgenre of internet personalities has emerged, the anti-romantic dating influencer. While girls online document their pursuit of love, a real-life broadcast of a trying to be romantic comedy, some ladies have taken to advise on more practical approaches to relationships that could better safeguard your heart, money, and stability. I will use 3 popular examples that I believe represent 3 markers in the anti-romantic dating spectrum. First is SheraSeven, most known as the Sprinkle Sprinkle Lady, whose discourse prioritizes the money and stability aspects of the triangle. Shera has expressed that her teachings are financial advice, not romantic, and her content focuses on identifying, attracting, keeping, and most importantly, monetarily benefiting from men you're involved with. From her audience's point of view, Shera's approach is beneficial in its technical design, and relationships are evaluated as any other financial product to invest in. You take a calculated risk, considering the variables, and if you check all the boxes she recommends, you'll probably end up cashing in. Happiness, comfort, and peace of mind not guaranteed. The premise is that if money is the only tangible benefit a woman can acquire from being in a long-term relationship with a man, she should aim to maximize it. On the influencer side, this model is sustainable as long as they're not exposed as the main financial contributor in their relationship. Money comes first, but no one opposes displaying affection towards the target, especially if it butters him up. So, these women could be as in love as any other, but their cold, tactical approach to explaining their relationship is coherent with the brand. The downside, however, is the lack of consideration for the actual meaning of these relationships. When Shera lost her husband of decades, it took people on the internet less than a week to ask her when she would start dating again, as if her deceased husband and father to her beloved children was no more than a business going under. In the middle of the spectrum, we find a person who caused a bit of noise herself in 2025 under similar circumstances to MJ Gray, and was the reason why many found the latter to begin with. Wizard Liz is an influencer who built a massive audience by bluntly telling women the reason they kept getting their hearts broken is that they put it in the wrong hands. Liz often advised her followers on betting methods to assure the person they were dating was a worthy catch. Of course, no one can be foolproof, but once again, measuring variables increases your chances at hitting the jackpot. While financial affluence was certainly a desirable feature in a prospect, after all, if you're taking the risk of dating a man, he might as well be capable of offering special experiences, Liz had a less cynical approach than Shera and the likes, leaving more room for romance and being enamored. This made people feel happy for her when she seemed to find a man who exactly fulfilled the needs she listed to feel safe with a partner, even if it took them only a couple of months to get engaged, making it all more shocking when he tried to cheat on her with one of her followers as soon as she was pregnant, thus tying her to him forever. The act read as an attempt at a humiliation ritual. Thanks to her digital footprint, it would not be hard to find what Liz was looking for, and performing that for less than a year was not impossible for a wealthy man with free time. then turning around and showing that her vetting methods did not even protect her, especially by betraying her with someone who would be very familiar with her content, ensured personal and professional demolition. However, Liz was smart by putting the information out herself, crafting a narrative that would position her in a favorable light. And although many saw the moment as karma for her comments on, quote, stupid women who become baby mamas and such, most of the internet was on her side and respected that as her partner showed a different side of himself, she reacted accordingly by ending the relationship. For months after the event, there were speculations about her actually forgiving him and breaking up again, which weakened the support. But even if that did not happen, it was clear her persona had to adjust. No one would buy that she could teach a woman how to foolproof their relationship. So now her content is more geared towards overcoming obstacles, especially in the form of people, and moving on as the best revenge, along with some spiritual strokes sprinkled in there. Last but not least, the subject that inspired this video. MJ Gray's content might involve aspirational lifestyles, but her most popular videos are those criticizing male-centered women and the institution of marriage, even likening it to slavery, as the woman would belong to her husband. As MJ said herself in the video following the engagement controversy, she has posted contradicting views in the past. Yes, she has criticized consumerism, but she also has supermodel billionaire as her bio on TikTok. So, trying to hold her accountable for being easily swayed by stuff is not of my interest. I do find it curious, however, that she had a lot to say about how vulnerable Liz made herself when Gray seems to be following a similar pattern. In some ways, this type of influencer is a mix of the previous two. Believing that if you're going to engage with men, they should be financially useful to you, and that if you're smart enough, you should be able to sniff out a phony. But what sets them apart is their strong denouncement of marriage. Gray and others like her emphasize that under the social conditions we live under, it's almost impossible to be a married woman who is not trapped or disadvantaged. And Gray insists she believes that, with a big asterisk. In her eyes, and for her personal and professional sake, I hope it's true, she's part of that small group that can actually make it work. She's the one smart enough to catch a fish, rich and kind enough to make an equitable, beneficial marriage. Audience disillusionment. The public response has been quite intense. People are not simply disappointed that Gray is not living according to the script they wrote in their heads based on the words she put out there, as they perhaps were by Shera's actually mourning her husband or Liz being cheated on by her partner. Those are matters out of those women's hands. MJ Gray's fan base feels betrayed because, in their eyes, they were part of a sisterhood, a selected group that understood something the rest of the women were not ready to accept yet, that marriage is a handicap. Turns out that is only true for Gray if you don't pick the right one, or if you're not the right one to have the option in the first place. People have been commenting that they even rejected proposals because of her, which I find unfair. You were either looking for approval to take a decision you wanted to anyway, or you were not ready to build a life with someone else when your guide is an influencer who does not know you. Still, the feelings that a community you found solace in is crumbling because the founding member is abandoning the principles that united you are valid. I just believe there must be healthier ways to treat it than to rebuild by attacking her. And when it comes to MJ Gray, I think she should be happy. But keep in mind that most people who fall for scams, studies have shown, believe themselves to be too smart to be scammed, and then are simply too afraid they have been fooled to admit it while there's still time to get out. It is not a coincidence that these seemingly unattainable women who put their exact requirements out there find partners who wrap them up in romance rather quickly when the feelings are high and the virtues are more visible than the flaws.